Alright, so for those of you that just got done soldering this chip on or are about to and want to make sure you actually did it right, I'm going to show you how I check mine. Take my multimeter, check that against 5 volts. There's a 5-volt pin right here. Okay, check that against that. And all I'm doing is making sure none of these are shorted together. And there's logic behind the ones I'm checking. In the schematic, these are the ones that are next to each other and might be shorted together and will cause problems if they are. And just after doing over 100 of these, I've definitely had multiple that were bad. If you're careful with it, you should be fine. And if you don't have a multimeter, just look at the legs on the PCA chip and just see if you notice any solder between two of the legs. I'll post a diagram in the description of this video, a link to that, or maybe I'll just post the picture in the video if I can figure out how to do that. But so what I just did, there weren't any shorts. It all looks fine. So that first board checked out fine, but this second board here, it might be hard to see on my camera, but I've actually got some solder connecting these two pins together, and that's not good. You'll notice I have my multimeter. This is important. I have my multimeter set to 2K because if I set it higher, say 20K, I'm going to get false positives on, say, this, because that actually is, that actually is routed to 5 volts, but it's going through a 10K resistor. So if I have my limit set above 10K, it's going to trigger. I know that's not a problem, but just when you're doing it, it's easier if you set it on 2K. Because none of the 220s are hooked to ground. If you ever see a 220 that you're getting a reading through, like I'm about to show you, then you know you have a problem. So like I showed you, those two pins were shorted. I'm going to check that against ground. And yeah, we're seeing 220 resistance between this and ground. Because if you look at the diagram, this pin goes around, connects to there. And so what's happening is this pin right here is shorted to ground, and we're reading across that. So that's why we see the 220 right there. What we want to see is that these two resistors are the same, just connected to different outputs here. But yeah, that's what we want. So all I'm going to do is take some solder wick and flux, put it on there, and we'll suck that up. Alright, so now all I'm going to do is I've got some solder flux here and some wick. I'm just going to lightly coat this wick. Not enough for a glob, just a thin glazing on it. You can just see it slightly discolored on the tip there. I'm going to take my soldering iron. I'm going to lay the wick with the paste over where that solder bridge was and just kind of run my soldering iron across it. Move the wick around different areas, and you'll see it's actually sucking that solder off of it. Let me see if I can get it to focus. It's hard to see in the video, but you can kind of see the tip of it's silver now. It's actually sucked up a little bit of solder on there. Oh, hit my camera. So I'm just going to do that a couple more times, make sure it's clean. And now if we look at that, bridge is gone. Cool. Alright, now I'm back at this table. Gonna check that same connection now. Right there to there. We should see no connectivity. Perfect. So yeah, we fixed that. Anytime you see any connectivity where you shouldn't, just there's some tiny little bit of solder that's connecting your two pins. Just suck it up and you should be good. For reference, on the Facebook page I posted a little diagram showing which pins are actually connected to what. Just in case you have a little more electrical knowledge, you can use that as you check to troubleshoot.